Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if this is your first time. But massive thank you to the people that have been subscribing and commenting, watching the videos. Huge thanks. This is my top 10 books of 2024. So I only read 65 books in maybe 66. Yeah, squeeze another one in at the end. 66 books in 2024. So I gave myself quite a low goal. I wanted to write more. I have written some short stories this year. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, not a massive number, but it's fine. I'm going to set a similar goal next year, really, because I want to keep writing. I want to try and start the next novel if I can. But in the meantime, the selection of books that I read over 2024 was really good. So there's loads I could have included in this top 10. I could have easily done a top 20. I'd say 70% of the books I read last year I really liked. There's a few duds, but only a few. So there might be, if you know, for example, that I read something maybe on your recommendation or just something that you liked yourself and you're like, oh yeah, I remember Gareth read that year, and I don't mention it, I still might have really liked it, because there's loads of books that are not on this list that I really liked that I just can't fit in because I can only mention 10 in a top 10. And it just seems a bit of a cheat to do honourable mentions, and I'd end up mentioning 10 others, you know. So, to start off with, my 10th choice is from 1953, and it's a book by Jack Schaefer called First Blood. I really enjoyed this. I read this for June on the Range, and Jack Schaefer is most famous for Shane, which is a fantastic book, and it's very celebrated, so it's quite a famous book made into a very famous film. But this was really good. So this is the second book I read by him, and I want to keep finding books by him. It's a really interesting story about a young boy, well, sort of teenage boy who's teenage guy, not teenage boy, I can't call him boy, you know what I mean, who looks up to this gunslinger and gets involved in this incident that just gets out of hand. It's really good. So the character work's amazing, and it's really gripping. So I loved that book. So that was my number 10. My number 9 is one of the books I read for the Banned Books Project, and it's from 2007. It's by Sherman Alexie, and it's the absolutely true diary of a part-time Indian. A very long title. And I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a bit different to what I normally read, because I think it's intended for a younger audience maybe, but it didn't detract from how much I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Loads and loads of stuff in there about the racism that Sherman Alexie faced in his own life. And there's lots of really interesting things about identity and expectations, and the relationship between the rich and the poor, as well as the white and the Native American. Really good book that is done in kind of diary form, and I really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend it. And I know there's some other people that have been reading that recently for the Banned Books Project as well. Oh, there it is. So the third choice, so number 8, is from 2016, and it's Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. Really enjoyed this. I did a separate video on this book. I think I've done a separate video. Yeah, I've done a separate video on a lot of these books. But this was a really good book. A really real surprise. I had heard that people loved it, but I didn't really know much about it. Didn't know. Went in relatively blind and loved it. I recommend it to anybody, but it's got lots to say about the expectations we have for women's role in society and what a real woman is. And this character wants a particular kind of life that doesn't fit into that mold. And it's just brilliant book that's funny and unpredictable, but also have these really interesting things to say about gender roles as well. So that was my number 8. Number 7, and I'm kind of surprised it's not lower, like higher, as in a lower number, but higher in the list. But it makes sense for what I've done, because I love the trilogy, but this is the right place to put it because of the other things that I've read this year. But I've put down Children of Memory by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So I talk about Adrian Tchaikovsky a lot on this channel. I love him to death. I think he's brilliant, and this is a really good book. I also read Alien Clay this year by him, which is also really good, but not as good as Children of Memory, and Children of Memory is not as good as the other books I read by him. Well, I think it's better than Children of Ruin, but yeah, they're all really good though. So yeah, definitely recommend it. I wasn't really sold on the ending. I think that's the problem with Children of Memory for me. So I liked a lot of things about it. I like the characters, and I like the fact that it starts with a very different tone to the other books, and you've got this sort of fantasy set up, or it feels like a fantasy set up, with this character living on this colonized planet, and it sort of goes from there. But yeah, really good. So Children of Memory is my number 7. My number 6 is from 1997, and it's by Jeff Loeb, and it's Batman Long Halloween. So it was one of the graphic novels in this list, and it's setting me off on a journey through Batman graphic novels, which I'm going to continue next year. I'm going to read a few next year. And I had read some Batman graphic novels back in my younger days. It was like Killing Joke was a big thing for me when I was a teenager, late teens, about 20 maybe, actually. Yeah, 19, 20, and The Dark Knight Returns as well. But this was really, really good, and really involved plot, lots of characters being juxtaposed together and interweaving with the plot, and you can see how much it influenced Christopher Nolan when he did his trilogy. But yeah, it's really, really good. So definitely recommend that for anyone curious. And then number 5 is from 2011, and it's actually one of the I can't see it, but the top row is kind of got loads and loads of hard case crime books, and I love the hard case crime series. I read lots of them and always enjoy them. I haven't read a dud yet, but this one was pretty different, and it was very special because I thought it was absolutely brilliant, really gripping, quite funny, very dramatic, very violent, quite I actually said when I mentioned it on the channel, I kind of gave a trigger warning about how sexual it is as well, because some people might think it's a bit strong, but I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And that's Chokehold by Krista Faust. So I'm going to find her other book in the series about the same character, but yeah, phenomenal book. I really enjoyed it, and I sort of whipped through it and really enjoyed the experience. So Chokehold by Krista Faust is my number 5. My number 4 was just an amazing book, really blew me away. I read it as part of a group read when we were reading all of the Stephen King books that featured Holly Gibney, and this is the book called Holly. So this is the one where it really did focus on her. The other books, she slowly increased her presence in the books. I think that's because he slowly got more and more fond of the character, and in this one it was all about her. There's another one coming out next year which is about her as well, which I'm looking forward to, but this Holly was so brilliant. The villains were nasty as hell and really interesting, and the way that the plot developed was quite unpredictable but absolutely realistic and really suspenseful, and it was a great ending. It's just brilliant. Holly, I just loved it. It's definitely one of my favorite Stephen King books. That came out in 2023, so a very recent one as well. Possibly the most recent one. That is the most recent one in the list. So number 3 is Persepolis from 2007, and that's a graphic novel written by Marjane Satrapi, and this is a really important book as well, I think. So this is a book that kind of chronicles the Iranian Revolution through the eyes of a young girl, and the book is autobiographical, so it's from her perspective, and there's loads about the freedoms that they might want and the freedoms that were taken away, and the expectations for women's roles in Iranian society after the revolution, and also when she moves away, there's this sort of sense that she's not comfortable wherever she lives, which is a really interesting and obviously very deep element to the book as well. But I thought the way it was drawn was really interesting as well. So yeah, just phenomenal. My favourite, I said in my review of it, I thought it was my favourite graphic novel to date. And I absolutely loved it. So that was number 3. Number 2 is not a massive surprise. If I read that this year, it'd have to be in there somewhere. It's an incredible book. It was a reread for me, but it's such a brilliant book. I definitely recommend anyone to read it. Part of the Banned Books project, but also part of my Ray Bradbury deep dive, and that's Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury from 1953. It's just such a great book, and it's such an important book. There's so many passages that are really powerful. It sets up something that is kind of unique in a way. If you look at this different dystopian novels, it's very focused on the book burning aspect, but it's a celebration of books, a celebration of the spread of ideas, the celebration of a discourse of some kind being such an important part of our society, and being able to have an honest discussion about things and open political debate. It's just amazing. So Fahrenheit 451 is my number 2. My number 1 book of the year, which utterly blew me away, and on every page I was just thinking, this book is so brilliant. And it's from 1979, and it's Kindred by Octavia Butler. If you've read it, I'm sure you agree. If you have heard of it but you haven't got around to reading it yet, I definitely recommend it. It's beautifully written. It's very important. There are loads of different elements that she put into it that make it less predictable, and these extra little moments that she put in, or the kind of plot devices that made it go even deeper, which was really good. Like the presence and the activity of her husband is really interesting, I think, because you've got an extra perspective in there as well. And the way she uses time travel really well to illustrate the point even more. But yeah, really, really important and brilliant and long-lasting book, still in my head. So Kindred by Octavia Butler is my number 1. So there we are. I've got lots planned next year. I think it's going to be a really interesting year for books for me next year. And I'm sure my top 10 will be full of really interesting things next year again. And probably another year that will be difficult to choose 10. But please comment below if you've read these books, if you can relate to those mentions, if there's anything on there that you would recommend based on what I've just mentioned. I might have read them, but I may not have done. And also, if you know that I've read something during the year and go, why the hell didn't you include this one? Go for it. Because, as I said, I could have included loads more. It was a very good year for reading. So, yeah, there we are. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll say again, I said it in another video, but I'll say it again in case you don't see the other video. Happy New Year. Have a fantastic year. I really hope 2025 gives you a lot of happiness, a lot of pleasure, a lot of life-affirming, fulfilling things. And make the most of it. And stay curious. Picture of what it's like to be